I'm Jenny, and this is Taylor from Colorado Beauty RN in Castle Rock, Colorado. And today is Halloween, and we are doing a fun video called Pick Your Poison. Do you want muscle movement or wrinkles? Because you kind of have to decide one or the other. We also have a special guest with us. This is Mr. Wrinkles, who was supposed to be a clinic dog. He's working on his manners. He's doing very well today, though, if you could see him and aren't listening. So if you're new, welcome, and if you know who we are, welcome back. So let's talk about, Taylor, what are wrinkles and why do they happen?
So we have two different types of wrinkles. We have dynamic wrinkles and static wrinkles. Dynamic wrinkles are going to be when you're moving and you can see them, while static wrinkles are set in your face and have basically been made because you're moving your face.
Right, so the static wrinkles you can see at rest and they're kind of etched in, and there are multiple things that can cause static wrinkles: aging, sun exposure, genetics, lifestyle, like smoking. And then dynamic wrinkles, like if you raise your eyebrows, the easiest one to think of is when you see the horizontal lines, right? So why that happens is the muscles contracting and then it makes the skin fold. So that repetitive movement, the repetitive folding, can cause those static lines. The great news is we've got something for that. The not so great news is there's always a give and take, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about tox, which is really the only thing that works for wrinkles.
Yeah.
For the skin, we have a variety of other treatments like chemical peels that can help with very fine lines, but tox is the only thing that works for muscle movement. So how tox works: there's this chemical called acetylcholine that tells your muscles to contract, and when we inject tox into a muscle, it prevents the release of acetylcholine. So muscles don't know they're supposed to contract. Tox works best on dynamic wrinkles because static wrinkles have just happened and they're almost kind of set. So the sooner you start with tox, if your wrinkles bother you, the better. Tox does tend to help with static wrinkles, but I always tell people, like, give us a year, right? It took decades to get the wrinkles. Let us do 3 to 4 treatments and then really see how we're going to soften them up. Do you know how many, I had to Google this actually, muscles are on the face?
75.
Okay, well, no. That was, I thought you'd go low. I thought you would go low.
Oh, you thought you'd want me to go
But
high?
I appreciate the gumption there. 43 on the face.
Okay.
And 20 muscles on the neck. So, okay, that's 63. That's approaching your number.
Yeah.
Okay, overachiever. Together. So it's important to realize that all the muscles, like on the face and neck, everywhere in the body, but mostly for tox, the majority of the time we're doing face and neck, they all work together, right? And muscles, kind of a simple way to think about it is they're either elevators or depressors. So they're either going to raise up or pull down. What's an example of an elevator muscle?
Like our frontalis.
Yeah, so our forehead muscle. Like if you think about kind of the box of a muscle above your eyebrows, when you raise up your eyebrows, it creates those horizontal lines. That's a frontalis. So it's an elevator, it lifts up. And then a depressor would be the glabella region. So that's like where your 11s are between your brows, right above the bridge of your nose. So if you make an angry face, corrugators and the procers pull down and in. So those are called depressors. The easiest way to kind of explain what tox does to muscles, I think, is if a muscle wants to be an elevator and you put tox in it, it can't do what it wants to do, right? And if it's a depressor and you put tox in it, it can't do what it wants to do. So that's, great in the fact that we can totally obliterate wrinkles, right?
Yeah.
But if we do that, the muscle can't work. So let's talk about like the forehead muscle, the frontalis, that one above the brows that creates those horizontal lines, because that is kind of a really like people's concern.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what are some things like people come in complaining of, like if they're worried about their forehead lines?
Well, the lines themselves, people definitely don't like the lines, but then when we treat, oftentimes when people have heavy lids,
Yeah.
We have the downside of not being able to raise those lids up like we normally do.
Yes. So I'd say those are the most common. Either the horizontal lines on the forehead, the frontalis, bother people, or they really want a lift, right? Because
Yeah.
they've got heavy lids, that like they're having trouble putting on mascara, and they aren't interested in the upper eyelid surgery, a blepharoplasty that will permanently remove the skin. Side note, we love permanent solutions, right? Yeah. I mean, honestly,
Truly.
if somebody's open to surgery and we think it's the best option for them, we will always recommend a consult with a plastic surgeon we work with, because it's permanent and it's,
You're gonna spend an arm and a leg
You're gonna
trying to
spend
get
an arm and a
net
leg.
results.
exactly
When you could spend a little bit more and get the permanent result.
100%. So, okay, let's talk about if you have not heavy lids, and you just have horizontal lines on your forehead, and we put in Botox on the forehead, it's going to smooth out the wrinkles, right?
Mhm.
Especially if you only have dynamic wrinkles that you see when you're moving.
Yeah.
The makeup's not going to settle in the lines. It's going to look beautiful. We can keep your gorgeous arch. Fabulous. If you have heavy lids, meaning like excess skin on your upper eyelid, what else do women tend to do, like with their brows? Like they tend to hold them up, right?
Yeah, when just throughout the day, you're normally holding them up.
And you don't really realize that you're doing it until you can't.
Yes.
So, and it's a lot of women with heavier lids do not like that sensation when they can't hold up their eyebrows. They look bright and open, like their eyes look to everybody else more refreshed, right?
Yeah.
Because we've smoothed out the wrinkles and kind of sculpted the arch with Tox. But if you want maximal lift and a heavy in the lid area, if you think about like the frontalis is a rectangle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the outside of the rectangle is like where the brow arch is.
Yeah.
We can't totally get rid of those wrinkles on the outsides, the lateral ends, if you are prone to feeling heavy. Why?
Because you're gonna want to lift and you can't lift.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
gonna feel heavy.
So like those pesky like comma creases above the arches of the brow on the outside, those drive people nuts. And we tell them like, okay, would you rather have a little bit of creasing there
Mhm.
or feel heavy? Because you can't have both.
Gotta pick your poison.
Pick your poison. It's Halloween. And why can't we just treat really lightly, like with just a couple units on the forehead?
Well, then they're not getting the longevity. So dose equals duration. So if you're not dosing properly, you're not gonna get the longevity and duration that Tox is supposed to last for you.
Right. And back in the day, we used to think that, we'll keep people looking natural by putting just like 6 units in their frontalis.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up making people look crazy because the FDA recommended dosing, this is a medication, for the frontalis is 20 units. So if you think of a bell curve, 20 units is smack dab in the middle. Like, it's just like thinking about like a Tylenol or ibuprofen dosing for a headache. Like there's a specific dosing to get a result.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, okay, if we put 6 units, then people will look really great. But can you imagine what happened? This was before you started injecting.
Oh, it'd probably areas are wearing off differently.
Areas are wearing off differently, right? And if you kind of picture like a dime size is about how much your tox will distribute to kind of affect an area of a muscle. That depends on how your injector reconstitutes the Botox, or Jeuveau, or Dysport, or Xeomin, or Daxify. Those are all the different brands. But in general, if you just kind of for explanation purposes, imagine a dime. So if you put 2 to 4 units in each dime, and we're putting so that's basically 2 dimes if I do 6 units on the forehead,
Yeah.
where I can prevent the muscle from working, which means you have about 3 more dimes worth of area that really want to have a party. Because if you've got the frontalis muscle, picture it like a rectangle, and I keep a third of it from working, The other 2/3 is gonna go to overdrive, right? Have a
Party.
party. Yeah, it's gonna have a party. So instead of being like, oh, it looks so subtle and natural, we could find this face in nature, it was like, what happened to that face?
Yeah.
So over the years, thankfully, with research and experience and injecting thousands of people, you learn what works and what doesn't work. And even if somebody had a teeny tiny forehead, like I have a very small forehead, 6 units would still do the same thing for me, and it's not gonna last. Ideally, we like people to only have to get their tox every 3 to 4 months. And 6 units on the frontalis might last 6 weeks. I mean, it's just, and it looks weird. It's not worth it. Like,
better off just leave the area off.
Leave the area off. So let's talk about the muscles that work together. So I think that kind of explained the frontalis, the main thing. So if you have heavy lids, we can place it strategically, the tox more in the middle of your forehead, more at the scalp area to lift up the brows so you don't feel heavy. But when we lift up the brows, it's going to crease, and you're gonna likely have some wrinkles on the outside of your brows. So pick your poison there. Okay, now let's talk about the glabella region, which those are the 11s, right? Those corrugators and procerus muscles that pull down and in, like if you picture an angry face. So if those are depressors, what happens when we inject them with tox?
Well, they're not allowed to depress or go in.
Yeah, they're not, they can't depress. So treating the 11s will open up kind of the middle of your eyebrow and your eyes and make you look brighter and decrease the RBF, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, can you just treat the glabella without the frontalis, without the forehead?
Yeah, so that actually is one of the areas that we can treat by itself. Unfortunately, the frontalis or forehead you can't treat by itself. Reason being is the movement is going to compensate elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to, just treat the forehead and make you have stronger 11s, and they're going to start compensating for that movement. So that's one of the areas you can treat by itself.
Yes. So if you have heavier lids, you're not interested in eyelid surgery, and you want the maximal lift, maybe just treating the 11s is the way to go at first.
Yeah, and being okay with the lines.
Yeah, being okay with those horizontal lines on your forehead. The other reason why we can't just treat the forehead without the 11s, because some people, like me, I don't have 11s per se, but I have to treat my 11s or the glabella region, because if I didn't and I just treated the frontalis, it gets hyperactive, wants to have a party, remember? Because it's like the muscle next to it can't work, so it's like, woo! And you can look kind of like cavemanish because it gets bulky. So if it's a depressor and then the muscle goes into like depressor overdrive, so you look really RBF, and it just doesn't, it looks off because your forehead can't move and then between your brows is trying to like really move. So lots of different options, but it's important to go to an injector who really understands anatomy, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't just treat one muscle in isolation. I mean, you can put Botox in any muscle in the body and it will have a reaction, but if you don't know what that reaction will be, don't do it. Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's talk about the third most common area for Botox around the eyes, that orbicularis oculi muscle. So the orbicularis oculi muscle is the thinnest muscle on the body. It's like paper thin, and if you think about like squinting or closing your eyes, kind of the top part of that muscle pushes down and the bottom part squeezes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the best case scenario for treating the crow's feet or those wrinkles outside your eye with tox?
Well, what it's going to do, it's going to help just not allow the muscle to actually close tight like that. So it will still be able to work and you'll be able to blink, but it's going to help brighten and smooth out those wrinkles around the eyes and help open and brighten your eyes.
Yeah, and you kind of can get, depending on placement, like a little lateral brow lift, right? So
Mm-hmm.
a little extra opening on the outside of your eyes, whereas if we treat the glabella, you get a little opening on the inside of your eyes. So yeah, we love the crow's feet with tox. Couple negative things can happen with that though. If you inject you have to inject tox where the muscle is, right?
Yeah.
If tox hits a muscle, it's going to prevent that muscle from working. So typically people's crow's feet kind of go from the corner of the eye down, sometimes a little higher. But some patterns for crow's feet really come down along the cheek area, right?
Yeah.
So if you inject too deep on the lower crow's foot, what are you going to hit? What other muscle?
Well, it's going to be the muscle that lifts your smile up.
Yeah.
So, again, like we know, Botox stops the muscle from allowing to do what it wants to do. So you'll have a drop side of your smile.
Not cute, right?
No.
Not cute. Not cute
Nobody
at
wants
all.
a drop
Nobody
smile.
wants, yeah. You look a little like Stepford wife or dead inside, so not our kind of thing. So it's really important to know the depth of where we're placing the product also. That's really rare. I mean, typically with newer injectors when they're learning depth and things, once in a while, and people's anatomy really varies also, right? So these are all risks that could happen anytime, but minimal if you know what you're doing and have experience. So, okay, let's talk about if somebody has kind of puffiness under the eyes and a lot of excess skin. This is going to be me, the excess skin, but I'm going to get the surgery. I'm coming for you, Dr. Corey. But if somebody doesn't want, just like there's an upper blepharoplasty, the eyelid surgery, there's a lower one. So if you have fat pads or puffiness or excess skin in an outpatient procedure, like Dr. Corey, he's in, Greenwood Village. He doesn't even put you to sleep. You get some funny medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Don't feel a thing. He removes the perfect amount of skin, but he can pop out those fat pads and remove the excess skin. But a lot of people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So, if you're puffy, like this area, like below the lower eyes, called malar edema, and the job of the orbicularis oculi, the muscle around the eye, is to squeeze. So the squeezing helps with lymphatic drainage. Mm-hmm. So it's supposed to, just in general, that muscle help with draining excess fluid. Mm-hmm. If we put toxin in the orbicularis oculi, the crow's feet muscle, it can't squeeze as hard as it wants to, right? Mm-hmm. So somebody who's prone to puffiness is what?
Gonna be a little puffier.
Can get a little puffier.
We can't
right.
flush.
It can't flush, right, because we've prevented the muscle from doing what it wants to do. They're going to be smooth, but puffy.
A little puffy.
A little puffy. And I think when people have a lot of laxity on their under eye, it's actually better not to march under with tox where that excess skin is, because it'll smooth it out, but then it's like saggy skin. Yeah, so you can treat a different portion of the orbicularis oculi because that muscle goes all the way, like from the corner of the nose all the way to the temple, like it's huge. But if we just treat, by the tail of the brow and where the crinkle is kind of going straight out from the corner of the eye, we've relaxed that part of the muscle, which makes the other part where the puffiness is under the eye squeeze more. So the placement of that might actually help
and decrease the puffiness.
Decrease the puffiness.
Work better.
Yeah. So it's super fun to be an injector who is geeky like us, because we are always learning, and it's really artistic, right? Because you get to play with tinkering with movement to get the patient's ideal results. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what would happen if we treat somebody's forehead, glabella, crow's feet, and like you can still move it slightly, like they look smooth, they feel great. What's going to happen with the muscles on the rest of the face?
Well, that's when the lower half of the face starts to just get stronger.
Right.
So, because it's compensating for the movement that's not happening up top. That movement has to be picked up from somewhere.
Exactly. So common areas of where you might see some excess muscle movement would be bunny lines, like the little cute wrinkles on your nose when you scrunch it up. That might suddenly not look that cute to you when they're hyperactive. The chin, the mentalis muscle, can start overreacting. Platysmal bands, you want to explain what those are?
So platysmal bands are going to be the bands that are under the jawline down our neck. So when you make a grimace face, those start getting really ropey.
Yeah, those vertical bands, exactly. And those are depressors, so they pull down. So I have super strong platysmal bands. And when you inject them, if they're depressors, those vertical ropes, and they pull down, it can kind of make somebody look like they have a less defined jawline if those get hyperactive. So when you place Tox in my platysmal bands, it gives me a little lift and snatches up my jawline, and so it can't pull down so much. The worst thing, this is not the worst thing in the grand scheme of things, but a pet peeve, I should say, is like when people's upper face is totally smooth and then their bottom face is like hyperactive, or it just looks like they're two different faces almost, like one's really aging at a different rate. So we really love all over Tox. Let's talk about the chin. That one makes a big difference. So as we age, especially the lower face muscles get stronger and we lose a layer of fat on the lower face. And the mentalis muscle puckers up, so it can look a little witchy, especially like on someone like me. Like I have a pointy chin anyways, so it can either pull up, or it can have like that pebbly appearance. Orange peel, yeah. So when you put Tox in my chin, it just relaxes it, which decreases the mental crease, which is that crease right below the lip above the chin that people don't like. It decreases the appearance of that without having to put filler in it, and it just makes you look less pissed. I don't know what else to say.
Softens
the appearance. Yeah,
look less pissed.
Yeah, which I'm all about. Because if you freeze your upper face, sometimes people don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And then they only can look at your chin. Yeah. And my chin was like, meh. And now she's like, I'm on vacay. What other muscle do you want to talk about?
I feel like our DAO muscle is a good one to talk about, especially when we're talking about lower face, because as we age, it gets stronger, and it is the culprit of the RBF face. So it's pulling the corners of the mouth down, making you look sad or angry. And when we just treat that area, those muscle with little Botox, it kind of isn't able to pull down. So lift your smile.
Exactly. I love the DAO. And we call it the DAO because the actual muscle is called depressor anguli oris, and that just gets really... It's a mouthful. Yeah. It's a mouthful. So if you're listening to this, that muscle, if you envision from the corner of your mouth, kind of going straight down out to the side a little bit, like where puppet lines would be. And if you show your bottom teeth like then you can feel, about me because you did mine, but my DAO is also aggressive when you don't treat it. It pulls the corners of the mouth down. So if you feel right on your jawline and show your bottom teeth, if you can feel puckering there, then your DAO is probably hyperactive, especially if the corners of your mouth pull down. Then, like you were saying, a little toxin there prevents the pull down and pulls up the corners of the mouth, which is lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, talk about pick your poison. There's what'd you say, 75 muscles? Sorry. I think it was 43. Was it 43? Yeah, 43 muscles on the face. Okay, there's a lot of small muscles on the lower face. So next to that DAO muscle is the DLI muscle, the depressor labii inferioris, which is also why we call it DLI. So if you say who, where you see the little pucker, who like an owl, that's where the DLI is. Versus if you show your bottom teeth, E, that's where the DAO is. If you do that in the mirror, you'll see they're extremely close together, right? So the DLI is in charge of pulling the bottom lip down. If this happens once in a while, and depending on the person's anatomy, but if you're trying to lift the corners of the mouth by injecting the DAO to relax somebody's RBF, and you accidentally hit the DLI muscle, and the DLI muscle is in charge of pulling down the bottom lip, all of a sudden it can't pull down that bottom lip, right? So what happens?
Well, your DAO is going to overcompensate. The other side of your mouth that you didn't hit the DLI on is going to be able to go down.
Yeah.
And
it goes way down.
Yeah. So you're going to not be able to hold that up.
Yes.
You're talking out of the side of your mouth nearly.
And it's super interesting because when this does happen, typically the patient can't feel it. It's somebody is talking with them and they're like, what the hell's going on with your face? Because we've inadvertently knocked out the DLI that pulls down the bottom lip on the side we were trying to correct the RBF with.
Mhm.
So the other DLI, like you were saying, pulls way down. So you see like all your bottom teeth on that one side and the gum. How do you fix it?
Well, you gotta more tox.
Yeah, more tox where you don't want it, which is on the DLI that's overcompensating now. So now where you're on the other side, you have to put a teeny bit of toxin to prevent the lip from pulling down.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
So you gotta wait it out.
You gotta wait it out. That is I mean,
But it happens.
It happens.
We're
Once in a blue
human.
moon, it happens. Yeah. So we do things to minimize the occurrence of those, like our depth, the way we point the needles, the dosing, the reconstitution. But I mean, we're working with living tissue here, and it's a bit of a gamble. So.
And do you want to touch base on, you know, even consistency with your injector, with learning your face?
Yes. So whether you come to us or another injector, you should go where you feel comfortable. It's your money, it's an investment, it's your face. Go with an injector who has the same aesthetic as you do.
Mm-hmm.
We like really natural, like you can find it in nature. That's not for everybody, and we have plenty of great injector referrals if somebody likes a little more oomph. But it truly is a partnership, and I feel like you need to stick with an injector unless it was just like you have a bad, what do you call that, juju, mojo,
Yeah.
5? What's the word I'm thinking of? Let's go with 5. Okay.
I would guess 5.
Yeah, unless they just really you're not connecting with them, then I wouldn't even let them inject me.
Yeah.
But if, you really should stick with your injector for at least a year, because it takes a while to learn everybody's anatomy and to make, tweaks and adjustments to your tox recipe. And if you hop around, whether it's for price shopping or just wanting to see what another injector can do, you're actually doing yourself a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
Because your next injector doesn't know what happened. Because like how Taylor and I inject 20 units in the frontalis is extremely different than how Sally down the street could do it.
Sure.
Not that it's right, there are hundreds of different ways like to do it, but it's not in your best interest to hop around if you aren't getting the results you want.
Yeah.
How do we kind of nip that in the bud?
We
with the
really
first appointment.
we try to nip that and try to get best results for the clients by doing our 2 to 3 week follow-up appointments.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we're injecting you for the first time, whether you've gotten tox for 20 years or you are fresh to tox in general, we just want to see how tox is going to react to you and where our placement is, and we always do that complimentary touch-up in order to get you your optimal results.
Exactly, because it is science, it's a medication, and just like 2 Tylenol may work for you for a headache, 2 Tylenol doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
I know that I need 3 Tylenol, or maybe 3 Tylenol works 1 week and the next time I need Excedrin because I need some caffeine with it too. So everybody responds a little bit differently. Just because you responded one way one time doesn't mean you're going to respond that exact same way 3 to 4 months later.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that dose adjustment we do with the first time patients between weeks 2 and 3 is like a game changer. And I do it still with everybody new because we train the patient what to look for, right?
Mm-hmm.
If something is a little bit off. Sometimes they feel like something's off, and then we show their before and afters because we are very OCD about photos and videos.
Yeah.
Because there's this baseline effect where people forget what they look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so fascinating. I mean, we're guilty of it too.
Yeah.
But when you have a photo or a video to compare, 2 weeks ago to today, it's objective.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to do is argue about, oh, you're lifted. Well,
Yeah.
if the patient doesn't feel lifted, it doesn't matter what we say.
Absolutely.
So we use that first opportunity to do any dose adjustments complimentary, and then we know their recipe, we know how they respond, and then we repeat that in 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
Usually the first time we see somebody, we like to have them come back at 3 months just to see the longevity of how it is. And if it's looking really great, the next time we'll stretch it out to 4 months.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about, okay, so say I get 64 units.
Mm-hmm.
This is a super common question. I'm your patient. And I bring my little Wrinkles in. It's being very good right now. And I'm like, Taylor, am I always going to need 64 units? Or can I get less?
Well, we always try to explain that your dosing is normally your dosing, and as we age, you know, if this all kind of ties back to what areas of the face we're treating, or consistency at which we treat areas of the face, so that everything is being softened at the same amount. So we usually need that amount to keep you nice and softened.
Right, and maybe in a few years.
Might last longer.
Yes, so instead of going 3 months after you've done, you know, your tox for a year, every 3 months, what we find is maybe you can go 4 months. Like that, when we increased our dosing to the proper dosing years ago, that's what we found. And it actually saves money for the patient year over year, because you're coming less frequently. And it looks better. So yeah, you'll still need your same dosing, if not more in a few years, because you are aging and the muscles are trying to work harder, but you can space it out a little bit more typically. So, okay, that's a common question. What about, I mean, budgets are 100% a thing, especially right now. What if I'm like, I could only do 40 units, but I want to do I really need 64, like I want to do everything. What do you say?
So we always advise our clients to treat at the proper dosing, because again, this all ties back to underdosing people. You're not going to get the results that you deserve as a client, as well as we want to make sure that we're delivering you the best results. So we always advise either treat what needs to be treated at the dose that needs to be treated, or leave the area off till it's in the budget, or switch up areas, you know, crow's feet. We can do that every other time.
Yes, exactly. So we'll just, we won't half-ass it. I don't know of another way to do it.
Yeah.
Because it makes nobody happy. Like we don't look good because you don't have optimal results. You feel like you wasted money because it doesn't last. So we just don't do it.
Yeah, around it's
all around. Yeah. So we have a minimum of 30 units, which is, I mean, most of our clients get 64. So it's 30 units. I mean, get you around the eyes. Yeah. Or between the brows and the forehead. Yeah.
Throw in a little lower face. It really
throw in a little lower face. Yeah.
It covers quite a bit.
Yes, because we want the duration. Something that happened to me a lot early in my career is, and I didn't realize the negative of doing this, is people are like, okay, today I'm going to treat my forehead and frown lines, and then when I get paid, I'll come back next month and do around, you know, or 6 weeks, come do around my eyes. And what I noticed after doing this, unfortunately, for years, I thought I was doing a favor for people. Like, okay, I mean, I get it. Money doesn't grow. Yeah, this can't hurt. It made people look off, because staggering treatments like that, one area of the face, like the forehead, the frown lines, fully kicked in with tox, like looking smooth and bright, and then it starts to fade off while around the eyes is still lifted and smooth. So it's like I never knew what their baseline was. Nothing ever looked entirely like balanced or cohesive. So it just, over time we learned that's not the way to do it. So instead of staggering treatments like that, we'll do the initial tox wherever you want it. Then we'll do a dose adjustment if needed, 2 to 3 weeks, and then you have to wait at least 90 days to get a new area or another place on your face. But like you were saying, you can't just do your crow's feet once a year, twice a year, doesn't matter. Prevention, but do it to optimal dosing.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you say about somebody who, I'm curious on your thoughts on this, because I don't know if we'd say the same thing, who, okay, they'll get their 64 units, but they are like, is it worth it if I can only do it once or twice a year?
I would say if they're gonna be consistent, yes, but I think there goes a lot into that, because home care is gonna play a big thing, like sunscreen. If you want optimal results in your aging process, because regardless we're gonna age, you need to be doing things at home, like sunscreen or a good home care routine, or even, you know, ideally monthly treatments, so that those lines aren't setting, but you're doing the prevention and correction even on the back end of things too.
I totally agree, because like good skin looks great on everybody. Like I love injectables, clearly, but I would choose beautiful skin over great filler and Botox.
I agree.
because it still looks better. Like you could have the best tox and filler, but if your skin looks like crap, it just doesn't look good.
It's not doing your injectables justice.
It's not just, it doesn't let your injectable shine. So
Yeah.
I think if you want to try tox, like try it at the optimal dose, and then if you decide it's not for you, you don't like how it feels, you don't think it's worth the money, then that's fine. Your muscles just go back to where they were.
Yeah.
But I would say if you can do tox twice a year, so every 6 months, at least, you are preventing your wrinkles from getting significantly worse.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm totally with you. The number one thing, just wear sunscreen and reapply. We don't care if it's copper tone.
Yeah.
We don't care what it is.
Something.
Something. Yeah, just use something. And they really, like in the last couple years, make reapplying so easy.
They do. We
have this powdered sunscreen that just goes on, like you put it right over your makeup, and it blends in with any skin tone. Love it. How much is that one, the brush and go? I don't know. It's less than $70, and it comes with 2 refills. It lasts forever.
Exactly.
But you could go to sunscreen, just wear sunscreen. Sephora, Ulta, get like a goop. They have like a powder one, translucent.
Start somewhere.
Just start somewhere. But
prevention's easier than correction.
Totally. If you were gonna do one thing for your skin, it's sunscreen.
Yeah.
And reapply. Like honestly, like I wouldn't even bother with injectables if you're not gonna do sunscreen. Like just get good at sunscreen.
Yeah.
Everything will look better. Okay, the only other thing I think I want to talk about is the lip flip. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or did we?
No, I feel like we covered quite a bit, and it was real informational. I think lip flip though, definitely.
Yeah, because after we talked about mentalis and the DO and DLI, I was like, oh, lip flip. Okay, so the orbicularis oris muscle is similar to the orbicularis oculi muscle in the fact that it's circular and squeezes down and in. So orbicularis oris is the muscle that goes around the mouth, and it kind of starts right below the nose and then goes right above that mental crease, big circle. So when it contracts, it creates those, over time, vertical lines above the lip, the white cutaneous lip that people call smoker's lines, right?
Yeah.
You do not have to smoke to get those lines. If you've been talking and chewing and using a straw your whole life, you're gonna get those lines. So live your life. Like, also there's this myth that you need to not use a straw after filler. I mean, or that's creating the lines. No, like if you're never moving your mouth, fine. But live your life. Live your life. Use a straw if it makes you happy. I just can't use a paper one. I'm sorry.
I agree.
I can't. Yeah. But if it makes you happy, use a paper straw. And thank you for the environment with the turtles. Anyways, that muscle around the mouth is responsible for moving the lips, like chewing, talking, kissing, puckering, Elvis lip curl, like all sorts of things. The muscle gets stronger as we get older, and it curls under, right? So you see less of like the vermilion, which is the pink part of the lip. So if the muscle curls under naturally, and we put Botox in it, then it can't curl under, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like it lifts up a little bit. And I'm talking, I mean, is it like a lot? No, it's like a millimeter.
It's tiny, tiny bit. I feel like we use that more, if we ever use it, as a dip your toe in the tiniest bit of water if you'd be interested in lip filler. Just to see more lip.
Like I'm trying to think of something where I can explain of how much lip eversion you could get. And I don't know if this is helpful to anybody watching or listening, but I'm looking at your pupil. So if you picture half the height of a pupil, like hardly anything, you can get a little eversion where you could possibly see a little bit more of the pink of your lip. Now, it's like 4 to 6 total units, right? So how long does it last?
Realistically, probably 4, if you're lucky. Very few, 6 weeks. But I'd say closer to 4.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Why, if we're concerned about like doses duration, why can't we just put more tox in there and make it last 3 to 4 months?
Well, because we still want to be able to human.
Yeah. We still have to like talk and eat and chew and move our mouth. Otherwise it'll look like you just try to talk without moving your lips. And we want to say like P's and B's. If you're a musician, like I'm not a musician, like a wind instrument, is that right? Like a
Yep.
flute thing. You would not probably want a lip flip, especially before a performance, because it feels weird too, right?
Yeah.
I despise how it feels. People, it's a love it or hate it area. So the people who love it are like diehard fans. Like, give me my 4-unit lip flip,
Yeah.
and okay, no problem.
Yeah.
But I don't like how it feels. Like it. Do you mind it?
It doesn't really make a huge difference. Like,
Yeah.
I don't mind it. I don't.
And I don't see a difference for my anatomy with
Yeah, I
it.
feel like we have good base
We
of
have
our
good
lips.
base,
Luckily,
yeah.
thank you genetics.
Yes.
But
Yeah, I don't love it. But
Yeah.
the people who love it, love it. Like
Yeah.
Kennedy at the front desk, she
Yes.
is. We should attach her photo somehow.
yes,
Like
I
Kate
agree.
know how to do that. But she is the ideal lip flip person.
I
mean, she's
totally agree.
She's in her 20s, right? Late
Yeah.
20s. And she doesn't have a lot of distance between her nose and the top part of her lip.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets like, so when she smiles without the tox above the lip, her lip kind of curls under. And then when she has the tox, it everts. And it just looks really soft and pretty. She
Yeah.
doesn't mind how it feels. So
Yeah.
for her, it's perfect. But it's not going to get rid of
people-
smoker lines, right?
Yeah.
And it's not going to add any volume to your lips.
Yep.
And if, as we get older, that distance of the skin from the nose to the top of the lip,
Yeah.
gets longer, right? So if you at rest can't see your upper teeth, if your mouth is slightly open,
Yep.
it's not going to do a thing for you.
Yeah.
And then what do they need if it bothers them?
Realistically, a lip lift.
Yeah. And then what is that?
Permanent.
Permanent. A plastic surgeon does it.
Yeah.
And they cut a little like strip right below your nostrils. They pull up excess skin, they cut off that excess skin, and they stitch it back together. So it decreases that length of skin from your nose to your lip.
Mm-hmm.
Looks amazing, doesn't look like you had anything done. Like, I think people just do it in the surgeons we refer to, I think they do it in the office. Like,
yeah,
I don't think
it's
you go
super
under.
easy.
It's around $5,000 to $6,000 right now, permanent. And that, I mean, yeah. If you
Much
also
better
can't
results.
see your upper teeth, then you're not the best lip filler candidate
True.
because it's gonna make them look bulky. Anyways, this is episode 1 from Jenny and Taylor. Pick your poison. Do you? Oh, look at that! I got a little snag here on my sweater. Do you want muscle movement or wrinkles?
Pick your poison.
Pick your poison. It's a balancing act. So be sure to ask your injector what they think. Like what's gonna compensate. And your injector, even if they're not saying it, the vast majority of injectors, like especially in the Denver, Colorado Springs area, are amazing. Like they're thinking about it. So
Yeah.
but it's always, sometimes we just get on autopilot, like we're thinking about all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, we should explain why we're doing
Yeah.
these things. Yeah, so that's
Good
what
to
this
know
video is
why.
all about. But let us know what you thought, if you liked it, what other questions you have, and we'll come back before Thanksgiving and do another one.
Episode 2.
Okay, thanks.